A faint tremor rolled across the alien colony as their long-range satellites finally stabilized the incoming signatures. What began as a distant blur sharpened into a mass of hostile readings stacked across the void, each one pulsing with cold, predatory energy. Their defense minister stood frozen above the holographic table, unable to breathe as ancient records flashed through his mind, stories of a marauder species that once cleansed entire sectors before vanishing into myth. Now those forgotten monsters were returning, and the colony lacked the weapons, soldiers, and allies to withstand even a single warship, let alone the swarm approaching at faster-than-light velocity. Panic rippled through the civilian districts as evacuation orders were issued, though every leader knew evacuation was symbolic more than practical. There was nowhere to run. The marauders chased prey until nothing remained. With desperation outweighing protocol, the colony transmitted a wideband SOS across every open channel permitted by Galactic law. They repeated it in 8 languages and 4 legacy frequencies used before the formation of the Galactic Union, hoping someone, anyone, might intervene. Minutes crawled into an hour. The command center's atmosphere decayed into hopeless silence as automated replies came from distant empires politely acknowledging receipt yet committing to nothing. Strategic committees argued over border disputes, old treaties, and the political risk of entering marauder territory. The colony realized no one would risk war to save them. Families huddled in shelters. Teachers attempted to calm children who watched red threat symbols flicker on classroom walls. Even the military personnel struggled to maintain composure as planetary shields rattled with each new proximity warning. Just as resignation settled, an operator shouted about an unidentified distortion on the far edge of their star system. It wasn't a marauder signature. Nor did it resemble anything from the great powers. The distortion intensified until metrics overloaded. A moment later, the void tore open, not violently but with controlled precision, as an unknown fleet emerged from compressed FTL. The ships were sleek, armored in pale alloys that refracted starlight into sharp glints. Their energy levels surpassed anything catalogued in galactic archives. The colony's defense minister whispered the name displayed by their translation interface: humanity. A species the galaxy considered quiet, isolated, and technologically modest, now arriving with vessels so advanced they defied comparison. Before disbelief settled, a steady voice filled the command center. It was mature, calm, and completely unshaken. The human fleet commander requested casualty projections, structural vulnerabilities, and the colony's evacuation priority grid. There was no demand for political assurances or repayment. The human presence radiated confidence without arrogance, urgency without panic. When the colony's leader asked why humanity had responded first when so many neighbors hesitated, the answer carried a weight no one expected. Because you called for help. That's enough. Humanity's carriers released swarms of defense drones that raced toward the colony, deploying modular shield overlays that integrated seamlessly with failing planetary defenses. Engineering frigates launched atmospheric stabilizers to counter orbital debris. Interceptor wings positioned themselves between the colony and the path of the marauder fleet. Every motion was efficient and disciplined, as though humanity had trained for this exact scenario despite no historical contact with the marauder race. Children peered out from shelter windows, mesmerized by the enormous human dreadnought drifting overhead, its silhouette covering half the sky. Elders wept openly as they watched soldiers from a distant world reinforce a colony no one else valued. Officers in the command center felt their despair replaced by an unfamiliar emotion: hope. Humanity didn't posture. Humanity didn't negotiate. Humanity acted. The Marauders' arrival loomed closer, their gravitational wake distorting local space. Warning sirens echoed across the colony as the enemy fleet prepared to breach the system. The colony's last defensive metrics suggested catastrophic loss within minutes of contact. Yet humanity had already shifted into a protective wall, their vessels forming an impenetrable barrier around the colony's orbit. Not a single human ship flinched as hostile energy signatures spiked. Every deck, every crew member, every system operated with the same unwavering determination. The colony watched their displays flicker as the Marauder Vanguard finally crossed the system boundary. A tremor of fear surged through civilians and officers alike. But instead of breaking, humanity advanced, silent, composed, and ready to face a threat the galaxy had feared for generations. Humanity had arrived not as a minor species seeking favor but as a force prepared to stand between innocent lives and annihilation. The first contact alarm blared, and the colony held its breath while humanity confronted the darkness head-on. The Marauder vanguard broke through the outer edge of the system like a storm of metallic predators, each vessel radiating the same malignant signature found in ancient extinction logs. Their hulls were serrated, shaped for intimidation as much as efficiency, glowing with unstable dark energy conduits that had once reduced thriving civilizations to dust. The colony's monitors overloaded with threat indicators, but the human fleet did not budge. Their formation tightened into a geometric barrier designed to absorb both kinetic and energy-based assaults, every vessel locking into synchronized battle posture without a single broadcast of fear or hesitation. The Marauders opened fire first, unleashing a gravitational lance meant to pierce planetary crust. The beam screamed across the void, distorting space in its path, and slammed directly into the lead human dreadnought. Observers braced for an explosion capable of vaporizing half a moon. Instead, layered plates rippled across the dreadnought's hull, bending and absorbing the attack before resealing themselves as if the ship were alive. Shockwaves registered across the colony's readings, but the dreadnought remained intact, engines burning brighter as if provoked rather than wounded. Human targeting arrays ignited. The colony's displays lit with streams of tactical data as humanity's battle AI dissected the Marauder fleet, identifying weak points within human speed. Human cruisers launched plasma ribbons that coiled into high-precision beams, slicing through Marauder escorts before they could reposition. Interceptor wings accelerated, leaving blue trails as they curved around enemy formations to sever external weapon spines. Each action carried surgical accuracy, no wasted shots, no reckless barrages, only calculated devastation designed to protect the colony behind them. The Marauders retaliated with a barrage of implosive charges that collapsed pockets of space around the battlefield. Human ships countered with subspace stabilizers, dissolving the distortions before they could destabilize orbit. The contrast between the two forces grew stark. The Marauders fought with sheer brutality, relying on overwhelming power, while humanity fought with precision, discipline, and a coordination level the colony had never witnessed before. A deeper rumble echoed across long-range sensors as the Marauder Titan emerged from behind the vanguard, an armored monstrosity larger than any dreadnought the colony had archived. Its appearance sent tremors across communication channels. Even the seasoned alien officers monitoring the battle instinctively whispered warnings. Its central core pulsed with enough energy to shatter continents. Human commanders acknowledged the Titan without a flicker of concern. Orders flowed calmly. Supercarriers adjusted position. Destroyers shifted to intercept trajectories. Interceptors pulled back to form a kinetic veil around vulnerable sectors. Then the Titan fired. A void cannon blast surged forward, absorbing surrounding starlight. The colony braced for annihilation, convinced no shield could withstand the impact. Humanity answered with a layered defense grid initiated within milliseconds. 3 dreadnoughts overlapped energy barriers, amplifying each other into a single colossal shield that caught the blast mid-flight. The void cannon destabilized the barrier, but it held long enough for missile wings to arc around the Titan's hull and strike its reactor vents. The resulting explosion forced the Titan to reroute power, temporarily disabling its main weapon. The colony erupted in stunned disbelief. They had been told humanity was a developing species, a quiet backwater civilization with modest firepower. Yet here they were deflecting attacks that once shattered star nations. Humanity's fleet moved with the grace of a predator and the resolve of guardians who refused to yield. Human capital ships unleashed a coordinated barrage, targeting the Titan's propulsion nodes. Blinding flashes tore through its armor, sending debris spiraling into the abyss. Meanwhile, Marauder cruisers attempted to break past humanity's defensive wall, only to be intercepted by human corvettes executing flawless maneuver patterns that cut enemy engines with pinpoint plasma bursts. Every attempt to flank or overload humanity's defenses collapsed under relentless precision. For the first time, the marauders hesitated. Their formations wavered as human firepower erased swaths of their ships. The battlefield shifted from an expected massacre to an overwhelming rout driven entirely by humanity's tactical superiority. Human ships advanced without bravado or cruelty, only cold efficiency born from a decision made the moment the SOS was heard: strangers would not be abandoned. As the last marauder vessels regrouped behind the damaged Titan, a low-frequency hum signaled another charge building deep within the behemoth's core. The Titan prepared a second strike, one far stronger than the first. Human commanders recognized the danger instantly. The colony's alarms screamed warnings that their planetary shields would not survive the next hit. Human ships surged forward, forming a second defensive wall even closer to the enemy. They moved as if guided by a single mind, ready to absorb whatever came next. The colony watched in awe as humanity positioned itself between them and a force the galaxy once believed unstoppable, prepared to stand firm even if the cost was catastrophic. The Marauder Titan's core flared with an intensity that warped the surrounding starfield. Every calculation confirmed the same outcome: the next discharge would breach the colony's atmosphere and collapse its crust into molten fragments. The colony's command center shook as readings spiked beyond emergency thresholds. Engineers shouted over one another while diplomats tried to hail the marauders, even though diplomacy had never saved anyone from that species. The truth settled heavily across the room: if the Titan fired again, the colony would not survive the impact. Human commanders analyzed the projected blast path with ruthless clarity. Shield power alone wouldn't be enough. The only viable solution required intercepting the discharge at point-blank range. The ships closest to the Titan would absorb the worst shock, likely disintegrating under the pressure. Humanity acknowledged that risk without hesitation. Several captains volunteered immediately, each speaking with steady voices as their crews prepared for the maneuver. Not a single complaint, not a single moment of doubt. Their commitment radiated through every open channel. A quiet stillness fell across the colony as they listened to humans send personal messages to loved ones, recorded quickly but with unwavering composure. There was no talk of regret, only pride in the duty they had accepted. Alien officers felt their throats tighten as they realized these humans were prepared to die for a people they had never met, a world they had no obligation to defend. Nothing in galactic history resembled such selfless resolve. Human cruisers accelerated toward the Titan, engines burning bright as they locked into the intercept formation. The Titan's weapon reached critical charge, lightning-like arcs spiraling across its superstructure. The moment the cannon discharged, a torrent of blackened energy erupted outward, twisting space into violent waves. Humanity's forward ships met it head-on, deploying full reactive barriers that glowed white-hot under the immense pressure. The blast overwhelmed structural integrity almost instantly, consuming 3 cruisers in incandescent fire. Radiation clouds rippled across their last known coordinates before fading into silent emptiness. Yet the colony survived untouched. Shock rippled through alien districts as sensors confirmed the impossible. The sacrificial phalanx had absorbed enough of the blast to prevent atmospheric collapse. Children who had braced for death stared at the untouched sky in disbelief. Adults broke down, realizing strangers from another world had willingly given their lives so their families could continue breathing. The Titan attempted to capitalize on the moment, shifting power to its auxiliary cannons, but humanity was no longer on the defensive. The fleet's admiral authorized a retaliatory strike that had remained dormant until now. From the heart of the formation, a colossal carrier activated a device known only in human files as the Aegis Core. Rings of starforged plasma expanded outward, aligning into a halo that pulsed with controlled fury. With a single command, the halo unleashed an overwhelming beam that tore through the Titan's armor as if it were thin fabric. Shockwaves traversed the Titan's spine, rupturing its reactors, flooding its internals with destabilized energy until the entire vessel fractured into molten fragments, drifting away like cooling embers. Silence filled the colony's command center. Their displays showed debris instead of an unstoppable behemoth. Humanity had destroyed the warship that once terrified entire sectors. What struck the colony even harder was how humanity shifted immediately back to rescue operations instead of celebration. Medical frigates deployed toward civilian shelters to assess structural damage. Engineering drones repaired shield generators and patched atmospheric tear points. Human soldiers landed on the surface to help pull survivors from collapsed infrastructure, carrying injured aliens as if they were members of their own species. Officers who once viewed humanity as an obscure frontier civilization now understood the truth. The human strength wasn't just technological superiority, but an unwavering conviction that life, any life, was worth defending. Their sacrifice reshaped the colony's perception, shredding centuries of assumptions spread by politically dominant empires. Humanity had no empire-building agenda, no territorial ambition. They acted because someone needed help, and that reason alone guided their response. A moment of profound quiet settled when a small alien child approached a human trooper outside a damaged shelter. Despite dust-covered armor and exhaustion lining the soldiers' movements, they knelt to meet the child's eyes. The child placed a carved wooden figure in the soldier's hands as a token of gratitude, a symbol passed through generations to honor protectors. The soldier accepted it with a gentle nod, unaware that this simple exchange would echo across the colony's history. As night settled over the recovering world, one truth became undeniable. Humanity had rewritten its place in the galaxy not through dominance, but through sacrifice. And in doing so, they became something the Marauders had never anticipated, a shield that stood between darkness and the innocent, no matter the cost. News of the Titan's destruction spread through the galaxy faster than any official broadcast. Independent channels pirated censor footage of humanity's fleet standing firm while larger empires hesitated, and those recordings ignited a wave of disbelief across dozens of systems. Civilians marveled at the precision of the human counterstrike. Military strategists replayed the sacrificial maneuver until they memorized every angle. Politicians panicked as the narrative shifted away from their carefully maintained balance of power. The colony's survival became a symbol of something the galaxy hadn't seen in generations: intervention driven by purpose rather than politics. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session the moment the reports reached the central core worlds. Representatives arrived with frantic urgency, each speaking over the other as they tried to understand how humanity had evolved so far beyond their outdated assessments. Most empires still possessed fleets of impressive scale, but none had deployed them to protect the colony. The failure to respond became a stain that could not be dismissed. Attempts to justify inaction dissolved under the weight of public outrage. For the first time, citizens across multiple civilizations openly questioned whether their leaders truly valued their lives. The rescued colony was invited to address the council. Their appearance shifted the entire atmosphere of the chamber. Exhausted yet resolute, their spokesperson described in harrowing detail how their distress signals were ignored and how humanity had arrived without hesitation. The account carried no exaggeration. Every word was supported by sensor records the humans had openly shared to ensure accuracy. The colony demanded accountability, forcing counselors to acknowledge their own cowardice in the shadow of humanity's sacrifice. Humanity sent a single representative to the session, projecting a calm image that contrasted sharply with the tension filling the hall. They neither demanded tribute nor requested recognition. Instead, they delivered a brief statement clarifying that their actions stemmed from a simple principle: if someone called for help, they would answer. They emphasized that they did not seek to undermine existing governments but refused to stand idle while terror wiped out innocent worlds. Their stance struck like a seismic shock. The Council had long been built on strategic restraint and political posturing. Humanity showed that decisive moral action could carry more weight than centuries of negotiation. Fear rippled through certain factions. Some whispered that humanity's rapid technological rise threatened the established order. Others argued that humanity's willingness to act where others hesitated made them an ideal stabilizing force. Smaller nations saw in the humans something rare: reliable strength without imperial ambition. Several frontier systems quietly approached humanity's diplomats, seeking protection agreements to avoid being abandoned again by traditional powers. The Council attempted to reassert authority by proposing new regulations restricting unilateral interventions, but their efforts collapsed as leaked transmissions revealed turbulent protests erupting across multiple homeworlds. Citizens demanded their governments adopt humanity's model rather than hinder it. Public sentiment swung heavily in favor of Earth, not because humans sought admiration but because their choices exposed the failures of existing leadership. Compounding the Council's fear was new intelligence recovered from the battlefield. Humanity's analysts decrypted residual energy trails left behind by the Marauder vanguard. The data revealed that the destroyed Titan was only an advance unit. The main Marauder force had awakened from deep hibernation and was preparing to mobilize. This revelation struck at the heart of every government. If one Titan required 3 human ships to sacrifice themselves, what would thousands of Marauder vessels unleash upon the galaxy? Humanity did not wait for the Council to deliberate. They began constructing defensive corridors and deploying long-range probes to chart possible invasion routes. They opened humanitarian stations on frontier worlds, offering medical support, engineering assistance, and defense planning to any civilization in need. Their willingness to aid without asking for anything in return attracted smaller species who had spent centuries living under the shadow of powerful empires. What unsettled the Council even more was humanity's refusal to take advantage of its new influence. They sought no leadership positions, made no territorial demands, and requested no tribute. Instead, they urged the Council to cooperate and prepare for the Marauder return. Their restraint made their strength even more intimidating. It became clear humanity was not building a political empire, they were building a shield. As the session ended, one final report from deep space reached the Council. Humanity's reconnaissance drones had detected gravitational anomalies on the galactic frontier. The signature matched the patterns of sleeping Marauder Titans, thousands of them beginning to stir. The message sent a chill through every representative. Whatever humanity had fought at the colony was not the true threat. It was only the beginning. Humanity's long-range probes confirmed the worst as they transmitted synchronized readings from the edge of the galactic void. Thousands of Marauder warforms were awakening, colossal constructs shaped for planetary erasure, supported by swarms engineered for relentless consumption. Their gravitational signatures pulsed like the heartbeat of an approaching storm. Entire sectors trembled as ancient nightmares stirred back to life, preparing to sweep across the stars with the same merciless ferocity that once toppled empires. While other civilizations debated the meaning of the readings, humanity acted without delay. Earth's Defense Command mobilized every available fleet group, calling home roaming patrols, scientific outposts, and long-range explorers. Munitions depots reactivated dormant weapon platforms. Orbital forges reignited, producing dreadnought-grade armor in continuous cycles. Humanity issued no threats, made no dramatic declarations. Instead, they quietly prepared for the largest defense operation in recorded history. Their intent was clear: the Marauders would not be allowed to reach populated space. The rescued colony became the first world to formally request humanity's protection. Their pledge sparked a cascade of similar requests across frontier systems that had lost faith in the Galactic Council. Humanity accepted them without exploiting the situation. Instead of absorbing new territories, they established cooperative defense accords, providing each world with shield upgrades, evacuation corridors, and rapid response beacons. Their engineers worked alongside alien technicians, sharing knowledge once kept behind classified barriers. Entire civilizations began reorganizing their defenses under humanity's guidance. As fear spread, a surprising shift occurred. Species that had once avoided one another now gathered under humanity's leadership. Former rivals exchanged intelligence and resources. Merchant guilds diverted cargo routes to support joint supply lines. Dozens of worlds sent volunteers, pilots eager to learn human combat doctrine, medics prepared for frontline missions, and engineers ready to integrate alien technology into human-led strategies. A galactic alliance formed not through treaties but through trust in the only power that had acted when others hesitated. Humanity unveiled the full scale of its armada at the staging point near a pulsar system. Rows of Titan-class supercarriers drifted in formation, their hulls etched with gravitational channels capable of stabilizing entire fleets during subspace turbulence. Leviathan dreadnoughts carried weapon cores strong enough to pierce Marauder hulls. Arc helixes supported vast arrays of modular hangars, each designed to deploy swarms of defense craft. At the center of this mass floated the Celestial Spear, humanity's flagship, a vessel radiating controlled power like a star encased in armor. When the Marauder Armada entered known space, every sensor across the new alliance registered the catastrophic energy surge. Worlds that had once trembled at small Marauder fleets now witnessed an ocean of predators advancing with unified intent. But humanity did not yield an inch. They moved the alliance into position and executed a synchronized defensive grid that stretched across multiple systems, creating a layered barrier impossible to bypass. The first Marauder strike collided with humanity's outer line. Supercarriers responded with orbital lances that tore through enemy formations, carving pathways for interceptor wings. Alien pilots fought alongside human squadrons, following tactics drilled into them during intense joint training. Alliance frigates shielded wounded ships, while human destroyers countered Marauder breaching units with relentless precision. Every vessel, human or alien, served a purpose defined by meticulous planning. In the midst of the battle, the Celestial Spear ignited its core and launched a concentrated beam through the heart of the Marauder command cluster. The blast traveled like a spear of brilliant fire, piercing the enemy's central titan and triggering a chain reaction that destabilized their coordination network. Marauder formations fractured instantly, their once relentless advance dissolving into chaotic retreat attempts. Humanity seized the moment, driving the alliance forward until the remaining Marauder constructs collapsed under combined fire. When the final enemy detonation faded into darkness, the calm channels filled with raw, stunned relief. Worlds across the galaxy sent messages of gratitude, acknowledging that their survival hinged entirely on humanity's courage and resolve. The Galactic Council, once paralyzed by hesitation, could only watch as humanity emerged not as conquerors but as the de facto guardians of the stars. As the Alliance dispersed to rebuild, one message resonated across every broadcast network. It came from the colony humanity had saved first, spoken with quiet conviction. When we cried out, no empire answered. Humanity did. They stood where no one else dared. And because of them, we still have a future. Humanity did not respond with speeches or triumph. They simply restored formation, maintained their vigil, and turned their attention towards safeguarding the galaxy from whatever darkness might rise next.